Triumph has been offering a rather large portfolio for the Indian market, which includes a retro-style motorcycle like the Bonneville, a cafe racer Thruxton, and even a big cruiser like the Thunderbird LT. But what I have with me today sticks out actually, because this is the only sports bike they are offering in the Indian market, the Daytona 675. And one look at it and you know this is a full-blooded sports bike. In fact, I would call it a hyper sports bike. The Triumph Daytona is one of the relatively small sports bikes available in the Indian market in terms of engine capacity and dimensions. And this is what perhaps makes it so suitable for our Indian roads, because it's easy to weave in and out of city traffic and also quite light to handle. But it looks the part as a sports bike with its attractive styling. Why I called it the hyper sports bike is very simple, because I've been riding it for a while, and if you ride this bike, you know what this bike is capable of. This is a small bike as compared to super bikes. The motor is only 675 cc, but it churns out 126 brake horsepower, and mind you, this is mounted on a very light chassis which weighs just around 180 kilos. And that is what makes this bike so very dynamic, so very agile, and you can really throw her around the corners. And in fact, if you're caught in city traffic, no problem. The bike really goes through city traffic. In fact, it cuts through city traffic. And in the open stretch, this bike can take you to speeds which are completely illegal. It might be small in size, but it more than makes up for this lack of size with its spirited performance. With a motor that is easy to rev, and it goes all the way to the 15,000 red line without much hesitation. And the 6-speed gearbox is easy to shift and even easier to find the neutral in when driving in stop-and-go city traffic. And the Brembo brakes equipped with ABS do a very capable job of stopping the bike. In terms of styling, this is a proper sports bike. Low crouched riding position with clip-on handlebars, fairings, a short visor here, and if you're of light build, you can tuck yourself behind the visor and make things really aerodynamic. But in terms of size, this is rather compact, it's rather lightweight, and it's far less intimidating than a big full-blown superbike. But in terms of rideability, it's no less. In fact, if you happen to take this bike on a racetrack, you will find that out for yourself. You will get timings you won't be ashamed of, because this is one bike you can throw around corners, and she corners indeed very well. And I rather like the angry, throaty exhaust note of the short exhaust. Eggs you on every time you twist the throttle to go faster and faster. The instrumentation is basic, but it does give you the information you might need. Although a larger lettering would certainly help, as it becomes much easier to read at higher speeds and consequently makes it much safer, as you have to take your eyes off the road for much less time. What I'm riding today is the Daytona 675 with an R. And you might as well ask, what's the big deal about the R? And I can tell you, apart from small cosmetic differences like the red paint job here and a touch of carbon fiber, the big deal is that she rides on Olin shock absorbers instead of the standard Showa. And this is what makes this R the preferred bike for the big boys, because she corners really hard with the Olins. The difference in terms of pricing between the R and the regular Daytona is around rupees 1.5 lakhs. And if you're a hard rider, then you will easily justify this price difference, because with a harder suspension setup, the Daytona R becomes a much better handler and a lot more fun to ride. Other than this, everything else remains the same except the weight, which has gone down by a few kilograms in the R. After riding the Daytona 675R for a while, all I can tell you is that if you're not the kind of a guy who's stuck on a superbike, then you do very well to have a look at this one, because this is a bike here which does everything just as well as any superbike would, except for the fact that she is not that fast. But then she compensates by cornering extremely well. Plus, she looks good and is not as obscenely priced as other superbikes are. The Daytona 675 ABS is priced at Rs 10.3 lakhs, while as the Daytona 675R that we rode is priced at Rs 11.75 lakh. And for a small 675cc motorcycle, this may seem a bit on the higher side, but the immaculate build quality with an eager, responsive engine makes it an attractive proposition.
Time for me to get going again, and as I told you last week, today I'm off to Jaisalmer, the city of the Golden Fort. Now I'm told that this stretch of road from Jodhpur to Jaisalmer is just excellent. There's hardly any traffic and the road is straight, so this should be a fun drive. Of course, I have my beautiful Hyundai Verna to take me there, so I'm looking forward to getting behind the wheel. Now the Verna comes in both a petrol and diesel version, but I'm driving the diesel, not that you can tell from the driver's seat. The engine is pretty powerful. There's 128 horses under the bonnet and they're eagerly responding to the throttle. It's also a good car in terms of handling, especially after the company made some changes to the current generation Verna in terms of its suspension. So it's a great ride with good handling and really, really comfortable. In fact, I wonder whether any other car in this category combines drivability, comfort and features quite as well as this one does. What makes the Verna really easy to drive on a long trip are the features. In this department, it scores full marks. It has these multi-function buttons on the steering wheel, climate control, which is great for the desert heat, this sunglass holder, which I think is just such a nifty addition, and a cooled glove box. I think it's everything you need for a road trip.
The drive from Jodhpur to Jaisalmer, a distance of 278 kilometers, takes around 4.5 hours to complete, via MDR 32 and NH 15. The stunning views of the desert make you almost wish that the drive was longer. Just be sure to carry lots of water with you because the dry desert air can leave you parched. I'm almost there now and I'm looking forward to checking out the Jaisalmer fort.
The Jaisalmer fort emerges like a sandcastle out of the desert. It's almost like you're seeing a mirage. Now this fort was built in the 12th century by the Rajput ruler Rawal Jaisal, and it's after him that the city gets its name, Jaisalmer. It was this fort that was also featured in the Satyajit Ray film Sonar Kela, which alludes to this very fort, the Golden Fort. And a very interesting part of the fort are the Jain temples in the back. They're really intricate and definitely worth a visit.
Don't forget to peek into the Parsvanath temple dedicated to the 22nd Tirthankara with its ornate ceiling which has a sculpture of a demon-like head with 4 bodies arranged in a circle. As you walk around, the head seems to connect to each of the bodies. The architecture and carving is unusual and worth observing closely.
As soon as I arrived in Jaisalmer, I came straight here to the Golden Fort. And that does seem to be what everyone who's visiting is doing because it's teeming with tourists. But I haven't actually seen any of the town yet, so it's time for me to get back in the car and drive around some more. Let's go! Strolling around Jaisalmer, you're very likely to encounter some charming architecture. The city is dotted with ornate Havelis, and I've actually chanced upon Patwon ki Haveli. And its beautiful airy courtyards and carved wooden ceilings and balconies just transport you to a bygone era of luxury and romance.
Patwon ki Haveli is a set of 5 houses wedged into a narrow street, built by 5 Jain brothers who traded in brocade in the centuries past. The first house comprises a quaint museum showcasing old artifacts, furniture and textile, all representative of Rajasthan's history and traditions.
I have to admit that in the middle of the day, it is so hot in Jaisalmer. So the shade of these Havelis has been such a welcome break from all the sightseeing. But now I'm ready to go check out Gadisar Lake. So I'm off. Walking along the Gadisar Lake makes you feel like you've entered a postcard. Its cool waters lap the honey-colored shrines on its banks, and it's just picture perfect. Now, I believe it's a tradition here to feed the hundreds of catfish that live in the lake, so I'm going to go see what it's like. They're looking a bit slimy to me, but everyone seems to be throwing bread into the water. So let's go check it out.
The Gadisar Lake was built in the 12th century by a visionary king who wanted to conserve and channel rainwater given the harsh dry climate. Until only a few decades ago, it was Jaisalmer's only water supply. Now it's a popular spot for recreation, bird watching and apparently for feeding catfish.
After walking around here, I'm tempted to go and buy some of the souvenirs I saw on my way. I think there's puppets and musical instruments and all kinds of local Rajasthani things. So I'm going to go see what there is.
When shopping for souvenirs, you'll find that Jaisalmer is a riot of craft and color and has something for everyone. There are shops that sell everything from puppets and musical instruments to turbans in bright shades like vermilion and yellow. You're sure to find something unusual to take back with you, and you'll probably even find a local folk musician or two strumming a beautiful tune.
It's almost time for me to head back to Jodhpur to get my flight to Mumbai. But before I leave, I thought I'd stop by the some sand dunes to get a sense of the vastness of the Thar Desert. Jaisalmer's location is incredible. It's situated right at the edge of the Thar Desert. Now, I've come to the Some Sand Dune to take in the vastness of the Thar. Here, everywhere you look, all you see are golden sand dunes. It's really magical, especially at sunset. After a long and eventful day in Jaisalmer, it's time for me to head back. Now, no tour vendor managed to convince me to trade in my trusty Verna for a camel, although they tried really hard. Nothing beats a steed so smooth, and in the desert heat, the air conditioning feels like heaven. Well, I better get going, but do tune in again next week for some more road trip inspiration.